I managed to get a look at Horizon Zero Dawn yesterday, and I think, like most people, I spent the majority of my time gawking at the beautiful graphics just because it's so pretty. But one of the things that struck me when I saw a lot of the overgrown skyscrapers and like all the tumble down buildings that are covered with ivy and all that kind of stuff is actually how fragile our civilization potentially is. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but when you stop and think about it, there are so many things that could go wrong. This is something I've been interested in for quite a long time, especially since A-level history, when our history teacher somehow managed to get hold of a government document from the Cold War about what the local government would do if there was a nuclear attack. And it's chilling to have a look at something that is basically a fantasy situation that you see in games like Fallout or The Last of Us, and actually it becoming very real. Anyway, this made me wonder what would happen if there was some kind of apocalypse, and what we would do as a society and how would we cope. And you've also got I suppose if technology failed in some way due to something like a solar flare, where basically the sun is shooting out plasma, and what that ends up doing is it just fries our equipment, our technology, and that can be any sort of for any period of time, from a few hours to perhaps even a year. And considering how much we rely on technology now, that would just be completely devastating, because we would lose communications, we would lose a lot of the technology we use for hospitals and that kind of thing. I mean, it would just be a complete disaster. The thing that scares me the most, though, would be pandemics or epidemics where we are just completely overrun by a disease of some kind that our medicines and kind of our medical techniques just can't touch. And while that might seem a little bit out there, it's actually happened before quite a few times. It's been sort of relatively far back in history. I mean, you've got the Black Death, obviously, sort of during the medieval era, and that took out something like 50 to 60% of Europe's population. So it was just a flip a coin situation to see if you survived, which is incredibly cheerful. You've also got the Spanish flu from 1918, I think, until 1920, and it took out roughly 50 to 100 million people. And so, considering how easy it is to travel the globe now, you can just hop on a plane and pretty much go anywhere. Illnesses like that would just travel so quickly along across the globe, and I think it would be a real struggle to contain something that is really contagious. But I think on the plus side, something that all of these sort of stories and things like Fallout or The Last of Us or like Cormac McCarthy's The Road, that they never consider is that, yeah, I'm sure you would get some real pain in the backsides who would just be very selfish and, every man for himself. But we always ignore the fact that people can be really, really decent in these disaster situations, because if you look at catastrophes like 9/11 or the London bombings or just earthquakes, anything like that, people really step up to the plate and help. They are kind of putting themselves in harm's way just to help out other people who are really in trouble. And so actually I think even if something really went wrong, I'd like to think that human decency would win out. And that's actually something that was really appealing to me about the idea of Horizon, is that even though clearly something has gone wildly wrong, people are still persevering, and they're still that there are still societies, there's still culture of some description. It's not all hopeless and lost, kind of like it is in something like The Road, where you might as well just blow your brains out, because frankly, what's the point? So let me know what you think. How would we manage if we were in some kind of apocalypse situation or a disaster? You can let me know in the comments or on Twitter @TheWordyBen. Hopefully I will catch you soon.